So, today's topic is of a new tomorrow. And those of you who know Swamiji's song, A New Tomorrow, the topic comes from that. And it comes right at the beginning of his oratorio, the many pieces of music he wrote about the life of Christ. And right at the very beginning, I think it's the third song, he brings forth this song, A New Tomorrow. And there's always a deep message in the music that Swamiji writes. He doesn't pick his words lightly. He was told by his guru, your life be one where you'll have to edit and write and lecture, and all things involving precision of words to create a precise meaning. And so what I'd like to do is actually explore today less the song and more just the title, A New Tomorrow. So why does the tomorrow have to be new? As I reflected on this, I realized that the most important word in this title is probably not tomorrow, but is actually this word new. Because we have many tomorrows. Every day has another tomorrow that comes after it. And if we've been led to believe, because the world around us is always changing, if we wait until tomorrow, a new technology will be invented, a new piece of news will come. Even the word news comes from the word new, that there's always something new happening. And this dream that we're in can very easily lead us to believe that if we just wait until tomorrow, it will be new. Something new will happen. And it's true on some level. Nayaswami Asha, who is a lifelong disciple and student of Swami Kriyananda, often says, don't worry, something always happens. Which is to say, you don't have to always, challenges will always shift. Challenges will always change, and a new opportunity for growth will always come. But at the same time, I was thinking, what happens to us if we live exactly as we live every day? Will our tomorrow actually be new? So we have this constant cycle that we all go through, where we have little choices every day. Are we going to change, or are we going to stay the same? And if we are angry one day, and we say, okay, I don't want to be angry anymore, I'm going to do nothing and just wait until tomorrow. That'll change it. Sometimes we sleep on it. Well, sometimes that can work for a while, but then the next week we get angry again, or the next month we get cross with a friend, or we yell at our family. And we have to ask ourselves, has anything actually changed? Is this actually a new tomorrow? Or am I living the same tomorrow over and over and over again? And in fact, Yogananda said, we incarnate in this life countless times, thousands of times, millions of times, until we have learned every lesson we have to learn. And so every day, we basically are given one choice. Do we want to change and move forward, or do we want to stay the same? And for incarnation after incarnation, the anguishing monotony of it all, of the same tomorrow happening over and over again, where the same challenges and the same mistakes and the same desires unfulfilled, or fulfilled even worse, and then we discover that that desire was not giving us what we want. And so we can have these same tomorrows as many times as we want. But if we actually want to change, if we want to see growth, if we want to actually see a new tomorrow, like Swamiji writes about in this song, we have a responsibility to do something. There's another hint in this song, A New Tomorrow, and it is in how Swamiji wrote it. So Swami Kriyananda went to Israel, went to the Holy Land to write. He didn't know he was actually going to write this music. It was just a pilgrimage. And he would go and sit in all of the places that Christ lived, and they're all beautifully maintained. Many of the places in the Bible are known now. You can go and visit where he, loaves and fishes multiplied, and where he, the city of Capernaum, where he turned water into wine, and all of these different things. Even a place where they say his manger was, where he was born, and you can visit these places. And he was going to each of these places and tuning into the vibration of them. And he used the phrase, I was like a spiritual archaeologist. He would go tune into each layer, the top layer, the most superficial, whatever's happening today and this year, and then deeper and deeper and deeper. And all of the songs in the oratorio reflect a depth of experience. And when you listen to the music, the more you listen to it, you can feel an experience actually of Christ. Of course, the consciousness, that unity with the divine, but also the man himself with his expression and the way that the divine expressed through that form. But what's interesting is in this new tomorrow, Swamiji says that he feels that that song is a reflection of modern Israel, of the Israel of today or of that day in the 1980s when he wrote it. And I've puzzled over that for a long time. I had heard the song for decades before I heard that piece of information about it. And I wondered, why is this a reflection of modern Israel? Now, the political situation aside, looking just at the big picture of how is Israel formed in modern times? Well, the people of Israel, the Jews, were scattered across the world, many of them in Europe, and at the time, right before the forming of Israel, they were afflicted with one of the greatest challenges of any people in modern or recorded human history, which was the Holocaust. They went through a challenge where they lost an entire third of their population in Europe to this just completely, I mean, the words, there aren't strong enough words to say how much of a challenge to the people this would have been, a test of their faith, a test of their resolve to be persecuted, to be hunted in this way. And when you look at modern Israel, Israel is a product of that challenge. You can draw a direct line from the challenges of the Second World War and of the Holocaust and of that kind of persecution directly to the formation of the state of Israel. And when you go there now, it's a beautiful, prosperous land. And all of the places you can go, it's a land like no other. And the vibration of that comes, of course, from the many saints and sages who have walked there and lived there and taught there over the years. But also you can feel a modern vibration. What did the Jews do when faced with an existential crisis? They responded by putting out more energy, by creating a new homeland for themselves, by creating a nation where they had not lived for hundreds and even thousands of years. Now, we are not facing an event quite as challenging as that in this moment, but you can say that everybody on this planet probably feels a little battered by 2020. There's a weariness that has set in, and every news article I see about the end of 2020 is all about how much we're looking forward to 2021. And there is infinite reason to feel that way. The vaccines are on the way, new treatments are available, there are new advances in technology for cleaning surfaces from everything. And so outside, the world will change, the world will shift. We will see an outer new tomorrow. But what happens if we don't make the corresponding shift inside? Yes, the outer form will change, but we will still have, if we don't change our consciousness, the same tomorrow. We will be living 2020 all over again. And it's very important to look at this time as a gift. 2020, any great challenge, any planetary challenge like this, you have to feel the will of God behind. Nothing could happen to the entire planet, even one individual, let alone the entire planet, that is not within the will of God. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is Divine Mother asking us to learn here? And I can't answer that question for you. I can answer it for myself, but it'll take every single individual soul, every single individual person to try to discover inside, what is it that this year has shown me? What was it that challenged me especially? What were the things about this year that really caused me to feel like I had met my match? And that is Divine Mother speaking to us. That is the Lord saying, there are still some cracks in this pot, but the good news is you will have an opportunity to have a new tomorrow. You will be able to have new days and new options that will allow you to say, I do want to meet this challenge. I do want to make sure that I never live another same tomorrow again. I want every tomorrow to be new and better, because that is why we were put here. We can incarnate as many times as we want and have tomorrow after tomorrow, and it always be the same, that anguishing monotony. I find an interesting lesson also from World War II was when we think about the results of these challenges. I like to use the illustration of a slingshot. The harder you pull back on that slingshot, the more challenging it is for you to pull, the farther that bean or rock or stone will be able to fly. So the greater the challenge in our lives, the more we are catapulted forward. When the United States was deciding whether they wanted to enter World War II, there were many Americans did not feel that it was our battle. We didn't want to deal with it. We preferred to be isolationist. We felt like Hitler can take Europe, and that's fine, and we'll just stay here in America. And thankfully, our karma was strong enough that we had to be attacked in order to be convinced that we needed to respond. It was Pearl Harbor that convinced us as a people that no, evil must be met with equal and more energy and willpower and determination. And that war was eventually won. But even more importantly was we didn't just win the war and then limp on. That overcoming, that perseverance was the beginning of the largest economic expansion of power for the United States, for any nation, in recorded history. We became a superpower in part because we saw a colossal challenge and we decided that we were going, instead of running away or staying where we are, which in fact is the same as running away, we were going to meet it. And through breaking through that with all of our dynamic will as a nation, we were able to push through and see even greater times, not only for the United States, but for the world. So this is the kind of willpower we have to bring. Yogananda talks about dynamic will. So if we're going to have this tomorrow that is new and great and better and different, it's up to us to engage our willpower to say, I will make it different. I'd like to close with a few words by Master on dynamic will. And this is important for all of us, especially after a year that had many blessings but might have left us feeling a little battered. Master says, no matter how many times you fail, keep on trying. No matter what happens, if you have unalterably resolved, the earth may be shattered, but I will keep on doing the best I can. You are using dynamic will, and you will succeed. So let's all make 2021 not just another year where things get a little better on the physical plane, but a year where we can each experience our own new tomorrow. God bless you.
This topic, A New Tomorrow, and he started with Swamiji's song, A New Tomorrow. You know that word new, if you remember Yoganandaji's definition of Satchidananda, where his addition, his contribution, everybody remembers that it's ever conscious, ever existing. He also says that as ever new joy. And same way, when we talk about tomorrow, a new tomorrow. So every tomorrow has the capacity to be just the way our life, which is Satchidananda, our existence, is like that. So if a tomorrow has to be new, what stops that from doing it? And if you see, that's like a tendency of clinging. If you wake up one day morning and then say, okay, today what should I expect from life, isn't it? And then I'm sure every one of us would have like a list based on our life, whatever the life has brought us, things which gave us joy, certainly. No? So there is in our memory, in our reservoir, we have that list together, isn't it? And then life has also brought, he was talking about 2020, and the 2020 wasn't been probably near that as we expected. But even before that, life certainly has brought something which we sort of categorize as, oh boy, that was difficult. All these experiences are with us, isn't it? We carry them. And when the tomorrow comes, the mind, if you ask these questions, what do you want this tomorrow to be? Then it will say, yeah, I would like this. The mind will answer, I want something from this particular set. And it will be nice not to have anything from this particular set, isn't it? But you see, like in that thinking, one thing gets unmissed. These are not only the two options. Are these only two options? There could be like none of the above. And I think the more we grow, and sort of, if our perceptions, our impressions become too rigid, then that none of the above option is not too interesting. That's a no. This is what I expect from life, and as long as that comes, it will be a very special and beautiful new tomorrow. See, but that conditioning, life is not going to honor that, isn't it? And then we live that though. I think we resonate with that to a certain extent. But even for a moment, you see, even for a moment, if we're able to leave our impressions, leave our conditioning aside, life has a potential to add to our experiences. Life has an opportunity to touch us more. We give this example, especially in level 1 when we talk about energy, but I'm going to give you just a modified version of that. Like think about one of those days when we are really tired, there is not much less energy left in your body or whatever. And it had been not a perfect day, compressed 2020 in one day. And let's say something like that. So by the end of your day, you're returning from your office, actually absolutely no energy left. You're just walking, almost crawling on the street. Somehow you have to reach your office. Let's assume you're walking. While you're just in your own, that downward pull, and then almost about to cross the street, at that moment, think about for a moment. No, you just stay there. And then a big truck is coming on the side. No? The truck driver is in known world. He's not actually paying any attention on the road. No? Very likely on Indian roads. And like, but you are sort of there and you all of a sudden see, and you see that truck. And you realize that he's coming very fast and he has no idea that you are on the street. Downward pull. Do you think we will just stay there in that downward pull, or what will happen is all of a sudden we will just jump back to the platform and save ourselves from getting hit by that truck, isn't it? And energetic. Of course, there might be some fear and anxiety, but something will be there and will pull us back. Enough energy to instant reaction, and we're back on the platform. That what happened in that moment, if you zoom on to that moment again, when something very important was demanded, you didn't say, oh, today is a very bad day. I think I cannot pull myself back onto the platform, isn't it? We say like that, no. Something just disappears for that moment. We're back on the platform, safe and sound, God willing. And this is the power. You see, the moment we are able to leave our impressions, leave our baggages, the energy is possible to generate that kind of reservoir right then and there. But what happens? The truck doesn't come every day. Nothing is demanded of us by life every time, which basically it's our part. If we don't do our part, what will happen? Even in this situation, you see that anxiety is there. Oh my goodness, truck, I should have been glad I'm here. In time, what will happen? That anxiety will stabilize, and again, oh my day. And we are back to that old week, and then again that downward spiral will begin, isn't it? As if nothing happened. But that insight of if I am able to let go, if I am able to not carry all this baggage, there is a great potential that awaits at me. There is another story you might have heard about the two monks. The two monks were walking, and then at some point they had to cross a river. This river wasn't as deep, so they could just walk it on the feet and then cross it. So both of them were walking, but the river bed wasn't as smooth. There were some small and big rocks in between, so, and then they were slippery. So one has to be very careful. So the monks were walking mindfully, so they knew their way very well. But while they were both walking, there was a young woman who was also walking in front of them. And she was not quite as careful, as mindful as they were, one may say. And all of a sudden her leg slips. And then she almost just twists her leg. And then now she is not able to cross the river. So the monks run to her and they said, what happened? She said, I twist my ankle. So one of the monks, not thinking too much, just lifts her up. And then they cross the river. And then on the other side, there is a small village. And the woman belongs to that village. So just take to her home, and then they say, oh, okay, now we'll take care of her. And now they start walking. The other friend monk is a little uneasy about it. Monks are not supposed to be with women, forget about lifting it. But he didn't say anything. He was just, everything happened so fast, but it is still there in his heart. So they walked for like an hour, and finally the other one who actually carried the woman, he said, let's eat something. So then he is eating, and at the same time he realized this guy, his friend, brother monk, is not quite there. So what happened? He says, we are monks. We're not supposed to be with women, let alone lifting them up. And then this other one, he realized, he says, brother, I had dropped her 1 hour ago, but you are still carrying her with you. Isn't that a wonderful reminder? How long do we want to carry this? Can we not let go? Is it so important? That perspective that we expect to have the tomorrow new needs to be fresh, needs to be unbiased by our experiences, whatever life might have given us so far. If you realize, if you just ponder what has given those impressions, we say, oh, I have this much experience from life, but the life itself has given those experiences, isn't it? Not that we were willing or we wanted those, but as a result of life, we have been able to create those two compartments, but I don't prefer this one, I prefer this one. Talking about impression, this was in 7th standard. That's the last time I remember in my school days I did any painting. I wasn't necessarily good, or it wasn't my hobby as a child when I grew up. But that was an exam, it was a mandatory subject. So we were asked to draw sports activities. So I said, I will paint a running race. I wasn't a fond in painting, so I just quickly do something. I just drew some, not circles, but a few elliptical lines, think this is my racing track. And then I put some 4 or 5 human-like figures in there. He says, I was done. In 15 minutes, my painting was ready. It's a 3-hour exam. So I went there to the teacher, says, teacher, I'm done. She said, well, it's quite a bit of time. Why don't you do something? And then it looks very empty. Okay. So I went back. I just started looking at, okay, what should I do? Then I realized it's all white. I have seen it. By that time, the color television was there. So I realized the track of the running track looks sort of maroon because of the clay. So I should add some maroon. Now I looked at my paint, there was no maroon, there was only red. So I started with the red color, and then I started painting with a small brush. But it was too big. The track was like all over the piece, and then this small brush was very small. So I took a big brush and I started doing the red color and I finished it. But of course, because of the big color, I was not able to be very careful. And at the end, like some of the runners, participants, they got some red on their face, on their feet. And then I went again to the teacher to submit it. I said, what did you do? He says, what? You asked me to put some colors. I put some colors. He said, this looks like not a running track, but like a gladiator ring. And then we both laughed. I realized that is true. this looks like it is blood all over the face. On that day, I realized this is not for me. And then in fact, at the 8th standard, I just switched to music. Since then, till about a few years back, 20 years later, I was part of a school that I used to run. And painting was an essential activity that every child used to do. There was a spiritual angle to that also. So the friend with whom we used to run the school, she asked me also to do a portfolio. I said, sure. So in that again, first time after 20 years, I took up painting. And I actually didn't do anything. I didn't know anything. No, I didn't even know that painting and drawing are two different activities. And then she said, yeah, we'll use the crayons. And I didn't know that the crayons could be used sideways. Also, they could be applied different pressures. All these things were new. But once I understood the simple techniques, and to my astonishment, I enjoyed that process. For almost a year, I did that. And I said, this is fun. Now, I don't say that I'm a great painter. I'm not talking about the outcome of my activity, but I realized this is fun. And why I didn't do it for this 10, 20 years. And I realized this was only one reason, because every time a painting or a painting workshop, painting activity came, my mind only says, remember what happened in 7, don't you? This is not for us. And of course, a belief thought, I say, yes, that's right. That's it. An impression in my back carried for 20 years. It's our opportunity to not carry that. As Aryavan was also talking about, we need to be discriminative. What is it that we are carrying with ourselves? Is this impression helping us at all? Now, it's not a life-threatening or life-transforming for me to do the painting, but you see, this clinging on to the impressions is something, is a habit that we need to avoid. Even if it is a small thing, that habit needs to be cut away. When we talk about life, what is life? We talk about this as a creation, isn't it? Creation. And the creation which is in a constant state of evolution. We talk about painting a small canvas. This entire creation is nothing but Divine Mother's canvas. And every one of us is a part of that creation. So an artist doesn't ignore any portion of that canvas. How can Divine Mother do that? From through every one of us, there's a particular expression that needs to come out. And that is what our participation is that can we tune into what is she trying to do through it and be an active, willing participant in that. This is the last story I would share from a life of Padmapada. He was a very great disciple. We tell generally this story as a relation between the guru and a disciple. But there's another angle that I would like to share today. Padmapada was a very good disciple, one of his best disciples. So the guru was visited by one of his friends and he says, Liki, why do you like him so much? He says, he has something that my other disciples don't have yet. He has the faith and he can carry that faith, what I say, in action. He says, okay, but what do you mean? He says, I'll show you. So the guru and guru's friend were on the other side of river Ganga, and on the other sides were his disciples. Now, Padmapada wasn't there yet. So he says, I'll show you. And he asked the disciples, he acted as if like he had some emergency and he wanted something desperately. So he asked the disciples to come quickly, cross the river. But the river was pretty big. There was no boat. There was no possibility of swimming or anything like that. So they were afraid. They just shouted back. The guru says, like, Guruji, there is no boat. How would we come? So they were anxious. They were looking for something, but nobody dared to cross the river. In that time, Padmapada came there. The guru again, with the same anguish, told him, Padmapada, please cross the river and come here at once. Without flinching for a single moment, Padmapada. His name wasn't Padmapada then. His name was Sananda or something like that. He walked. He took 1 foot onto the water. He decided to walk the water. without thinking what that actually means. And then the moment he put his first feet onto the water, what happened? Ganga realized, and Ganga participated. Providence through Ganga responded to his faith, to his conviction that if this is the right thing, it will be supported. And a lotus came and supported his feet. He went to the second feet. He put the second step, another lotus. And all through, as he was walking, crossing the Ganga to his guru, one lotus after the other. And he reached. One thing, as I mentioned, I wanted us to point out. When he put the first feet, it wasn't the lotuses all over that he saw the bridge. There was only one lotus to support just enough for the first step that he took. With the same conviction, with the same faith, he had to put the second, and then the lotus was supported. The path was created as he continued. It wasn't laid down for him, even though he had faith every moment. And this is what the invitation is, to live a life where we trust the providence, we trust the life in itself. What life is going to bring today, we have a choice not to bind it with our impression, but free ourselves from those impressions, and then let life bring whatever it she has to bring. Whatever song she has to sing through us, we are ready for it. That's a new tomorrow. On Kabir's poem, he ends with saying, Hey Sadhu, calls Sadhu is seeker, Agama Pantha Ik Sureka, meaning the path of a brave is pathless. In some ways, I will let you meditate on that, but in some ways it says it cannot be seen like from here to the end of it, the bridge that is going to your guru. But the moment you have that faith in that, any step in tune, in support, in cooperation with the divine grace will always be supported. You will see the path appears under your feet. With that thought, I would encourage everyone not just to begin this year for all of us, but every day with a conviction, with the decision that we won't carry our impressions, our prejudices, our experiences, and keeping that away and let life unfold, let life reveal her majesty to the best, and we be the willing, cooperative participant in that. Joy to you.